All right, well, welcome back to another episode of LorcanaChats. I am Chris, aka Questing for Lore. And with me today, I have another fellow Lorcana community member and Instagram creator, Enchanted Kim. Hey, Kim, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's early
Good.
for me, so I have coffee.
Nice, nice. Well, you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit and kind of tell everybody some about you?
Yeah, so I'm Enchanted Kim. I'm in the PNW area, which if you don't know, that's like where Ravensburger headquarters is. So it's a very popular area to have Lorcana, and it was very easy to get into the game over there. Um, and ever since getting into Lorcana, I've just been very focused on trying to grow the community both locally and online, especially in the more social play aspect. And so I've just been creating content on Instagram and Twitter and just trying to get the community connected and getting prepped for DLCs and giving ideas on how to like throw fun events in the area.
Nice, nice. So I'm always curious. I like to get people's kind of origin story about how they kind of got into Lorcana and, what really pulled them in. Can you kind of talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah, so I have always been really into Disney, like as early as I can remember. Like I love Cinderella especially, so my mom always had a fun time trying to get me out of my Cinderella dress when I was little. Um, so very excited to see her as an Enchanted. But yeah, I've always been a big Disney fan, but I've never played TCGs. And like I said earlier, Ravensburger is pretty local to the area, and so I have a lot of friends who either work on the game, whether like actually work on the game or just, play testers and whatnot, especially back in the early days. So I've been I've been in the know of Lorcana back like when it was starting, I guess, like before set one even came out, about like, oh, this is a cool, good thing coming. But at the time I didn't care because I was like, I don't play TCGs. Um, and then, my boyfriend, he's a very competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player, and he
Okay.
just wanted us, he heard about Lorcana and he wanted us to have something to do together. And he's like, oh, well, there's Lorcana. This is, a TCG, but it's Disney. And I've heard, it's very easy for newer players to get in.
Mhm.
And, so you should try it out. And I definitely think he let me win the first couple games to get me to feel like I'm awesome and I can do this,
Right.
which it worked because afterwards I'm like, I'm the new Zach Evans. um,
Nice, nice.
I was no funny story. The first time I ever built a deck by myself, because he handed me the app and he's like, okay, go try to build a deck.
Okay.
And first chapter had already came out. I think by the time I actually started to like get into the game and like start actually playing, because at first we opened packs for first chapter. And I was just like, oh, these are cool, like, these are pretty artworks. Um, and diving into why I'm called Enchanted Kim is that from the very beginning, I just have really crazy luck pulling enchanteds. Like one of the first packs I
That's a
opened
good
was an
thing to have. Yeah.
enchanted. Yeah. And so every set since I've just pulled enchanteds. Like set five, we pulled collectively all the amber enchanteds, and I pulled bad add-on. So yeah, very early on Enchanted Kim.
Wow,
But it
that
was
that's pretty
just
impressive.
yeah. And from like very limited stuff too. Like we only bought two boxes total for set five, and then just like random packs that I've won here and there. So that's why it's
Wow.
just like, impressive to like get all these enchantments.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, for so when I was building my first deck though, it was I think like a 65 card deck or something, and they were
Hmm.
all one-offs of
Oh.
I think Sapphire and and I like showed this to my partner, so excited to be like, here's my deck. I built this all by myself. And he was
Yeah.
like all one ofs. And I was like, because they're all good. And I wanted all
Nice.
yeah, never really got into deck building after that.
Yeah.
But no, we ended up getting really into it. And then I've just kind of ended up getting way more into it than him, where it's just like I would just go to locals all the time by
Hmm.
myself and like meet a bunch of friends there, and then got into content creating because I just wanted to see more social play because I felt like there wasn't enough quite yet where people were like building their theme decks. And so yeah, that was kind of the origin story for me and like how I got into the game.
Nice, nice. So the scene there is pretty good, I assume. Sounds like
Yeah, this is
lots of
really
locals and all sorts of. I've seen stuff
great.
that you posted. It seems like, good sized groups and
Yeah,
especially
and I think
the special events and everything.
and I think too, like the PNW, they always joke is like we have rain all the time. Like Seattle, it's just, a
Right.
rainy city. And so you have a lot of people that are very indoor. Like I was kind of like Washington, you divide into two people. You have your like gamers and you have your hikers. I'm not a hiker, so very much
Okay.
into like the indoor gaming, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And and I think it makes sense. Like if I remember right, Wizards of the Coast, which is Magic, is also like in the PNW.
Hmm.
Um, and we have all our like actual like video game type stuff, like Microsoft and all of those sort of companies are also in Seattle. So it makes sense that we have so much gaming here, and like even just across the street from me, I have an LGS that I can just walk to.
Oh, really?
So LGSs are just everywhere in the area.
Yeah.
Like you can't really go far without running into one. And so set championships kind of go crazy. Like
Yeah,
there's
I can
always gonna be
imagine.
that. Because it's just like there's just so many LGSs or like release weekend is always crazy because it's like where do you go?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you start to have like your home stores and like your local like group that you kind of make because you end up going to all the same ones. But
right.
selection is pretty good if are like you can almost find an LGS to go to almost every day of the week if you wanted to, which is really nice.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I don't know if it was for up there or someplace else, but the last set championship, somebody had a like a full schedule of every LGS in the area and the times and the dates, and it was like 60 different
Yeah,
stores, and it was all like crammed in. It was like there's no way you could
well,
do
not early.
even
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
fourth of it, but that's crazy. For
very.
somebody who has a single store that's about 45 minutes to an hour away, and then the next closest one is about 2.5 hours. It's crazy to me to have so much of that, all in one place. Um, but it's good, it's great to see, local scenes like that really thriving.
Mhm.
And you've done some special events there. Is it usually at the same LGS or do you kind
I
of
usually do it at the same LGS.
okay.
That LGS is very like they're known for throwing parties, so that was definitely one of the main reasons why I like have built like a really good relationship with them, and also was like,
Hmm.
you already have such a good reputation, like and they were very helpful in helping me throw my first ever tea party, but yeah, no, they like if you've seen on like Instagram and stuff, like they have these things called trove parties where everyone gets a trove and we essentially play a sealed like event because you get like the 6 packs in your trove.
Right.
Um, but they go like all out. Like for step 5, it was Wreck-It Ralph themed, and so like we had this whole table that was just like candy, and they had like an actual like racetrack going through it with those like
Oh,
big
wow.
cars. And like people are encouraged to like dress up, and they have like
Hmm.
raffles throughout the whole event. And they're definitely like really well known. Like we'll have different people from Robinsburger go through. So like that was like how I met Ryan for the first time
Hmm.
because like it's such a fun party that they're kind of like we have to go.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and they're pretty huge. Like they usually sell out and they're about like 40 plus people in attendance. So
Wow.
they have
Okay.
some very fun and big parties.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for those not in the area, what's the name of the store?
Cole Street Game Vault.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Little plug for them there.
Yeah. I know, they're just amazing. They deserve it.
And so you already mentioned the tea party. Didn't you just was that the princess one? Or was
So I
that
had a
a different one? I can't keep
so
track. You do so many
yeah.
different things.
Yeah, so I had a princess one, I think it was like the end of June. Yes, it was the end of June.
Okay.
And then I just had this last weekend a villains themed tea party. So I was like, I want to switch it up.
Okay.
Can't do the same
Okay.
thing twice. But yeah, I just had the villains one last weekend because I thought it would also be a good way to kick off like the Halloween season, which
Oh,
was
yeah. Yeah. Good point. Um, so are those just like like draft or constructed, or what? How do those run usually?
Yeah, so the point of like those tea parties is um so like I said before, like this was my first TCG,
Hmm.
and um TCGs can be like really intimidating for females, especially. Um, like I said, I often plays competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And like I've come in where, we're going to meet up for lunch after his tournament, and I like show up, at the tail end and like walk in, and it's just like, oh, this is all men, and that's just kind of intimidating. I remember the first time I ever went to an LGS by myself for a Lorcana, like I was scared, and everyone was super nice, and I shouldn't have been that scared, but still, it's kind of scary to like
Mhm.
walk into a room where you don't really know anyone and you don't really see
Oh
too many
yeah.
people that look like you. And at the time, like it wasn't quite Disney-fied yet because it was still pretty early into the game. And
Hmm.
so, it's these, I think the term now is like sweats. Um, none of them are wearing like Disney gear. And here I am super excited with like my like lounge flies and like a spirit jersey.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, luckily, they were super inviting and welcoming, but I can understand not every store, unfortunately, is like that. Or it's just like in
Hmm.
general, you walk, like I have heard stories from friends where you're like, they walk in, they see that, and then they turn around because they, get so scared. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I really wanted to create an environment where at least like for a day, to create something where it's primarily geared towards ladies because it is like a tea party. But honestly, like
Hmm.
anyone's invited as long as you have good vibes. Like you're welcome to come party with us. Um, but I just wanted a day where, primarily like you could feel like you could be a full on like Disney fan and like dress up and come in with just like your favorite theme deck. Um, and it was just like a mix and mingle essentially. So there
Hmm.
was no like construct to it. Like it wasn't like a constructed tournament where it's like, okay, we're gonna have rounds. It really was just like almost like free play. I did make it where at the beginning because like people get shy and awkward, and that's always like a fear of just like, oh, like everyone's shy and awkward that if you just say free play, no one's gonna play with different people.
Right.
So I definitely
Right.
was like, okay, like for 45 minutes, like create a group. And if you guys can't, like, I felt like a teacher where it's just like, if you guys can't, mix with your group, like, I'm going to start counting you off and you'll get paired together for multiplayer.
Right.
And so I definitely had to do that like the first ever round, but then afterwards, like, people definitely were like, oh, like, I'm going to play with other people, especially because I kind of made it a game. Like, I had
Hmm.
a sheet where it had different objectives. So, like, if you dressed up and wore Disney, you would get like a ticket. If you brought a theme deck, you would get like two tickets. And then for every like new person you played with, you just have to like write their name on the sheet, like you got a ticket for it. And
Hmm.
essentially like all those tickets were used in a raffle, which were like prizes. And like I had so many prizes, and like they weren't like super major prizes. It was like a booster pack, but like at that
Right.
point it made it feel like almost everyone walked away with like a prize, which is always a great feeling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was more like my idea for it was to have it timed where they were right before like set champion season.
Hmm.
So that people could make friends with people in the local area. So then it's like,
Okay.
oh, I made friends with someone here. Now I feel, I talked to them. They said they're going to the set champs next weekend. And now I feel more inclined to go because I know someone that's
Right.
going to be there. Because,
Yeah.
I
No, it's really
feel,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, because most people, I feel like I can definitely admit for myself, like I wouldn't go to a set championship if I didn't know anyone there because
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
awkward and I need someone to talk to in between rounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I'm sure other people feel the same way. Like most people, I feel like when they're into gaming, whether it's video games or TCGs, are pretty introverted, and so
Hmm.
kind of having this like casual but almost like forced way to make friends. Um, only forced because of the whole ticket idea, but
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
like in order to try to get prizes, you are interacting with people.
Hmm.
You have to interact with people in order to have like a better chance of winning a prize. And so I'm kind of like almost sneakily making people like make friends and talk to people. But it works out
Nice.
because like I found out like after the first one, that it worked because I had so many new people because like I said at the time, especially like the set champs in July, I was going to every single one I could. And
Hmm.
so it was really exciting to like see that there were people who came up to me and were like, I've never been to one before, but because of your party, I, met so and so and they told me about this one and now I'm here. And I'm like, that's so
Nice.
awesome that
Yeah.
like the intent actually worked. So I'm curious after, because I threw this party right before the set championship starting this month.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited to hear one because I'm not going to as many. I'm only going to one on Saturday, but I'm curious to hear afterwards. If it happened again, hopefully it did. I definitely saw a lot of new people at this one that they just threw. So hopefully that works out. Or even too, like if it wasn't set championships, like we have Seattle DLC, which is like in my area.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm curious too if that also helped. Like I know people were talking about DLC at the party, so I'm curious too if because of the party, people are like, oh, I was really nervous to go to DLC, but now I feel less nervous because I met someone at the party who's also going to be
Right.
there.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
so I'm really excited to hear about that in a few weeks if it happened or not.
Yeah. And y'all put together, you and Sarah, the Lorcana librarian, put together like a DLC guide, right?
Yeah, yeah, because Sarah, so like I have a lot of experience as a player, like going to a lot of, like I said, I travel a lot, so I go to, um, like events all over the area, whether it's at championships or special sealed or draft events that the store decides to do or like released
Hmm.
events. So I go to like a lot of tournaments or like if there's something like packs, like I more often than not will go to things like that. And so I have a lot of experience as a player going through these things and like having a good idea of like what to bring with you or what's to be expected. Um, versus Sarah has a lot of experience working behind the scenes on the event, like as a judge and like understanding what goes on, like if you had to request, special seating and whatnot. And we realized that a lot of people don't know because granted, DLCs are so hard to get tickets to in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
So most people can only get, a ticket to one because like that's what they could secure within, how fast they sell out. Or even two in
Hmm.
general, like, DLCs are pretty pricey to go to, honestly.
Yeah, they are.
Just like traveling, if you're trying to go to all of them, I'm just like, how?
Yeah.
Like especially
Yeah.
as like
You
visitors,
sell your
you know,
your playmat and stuff. That's how
right,
apparently.
selling Woodies. Um, but yeah, they are really hard to get to where it's like, oh, are you gonna travel or for some people it's like, oh, I wanted to go to one and like the closest because there aren't that many right now either. And
Right.
so like I think it's like East Coast or like Mid Coast has where it's like they only got like one for the whole year in their area.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and so it's like I get it to them, it's like, oh, that's a lot of traveling. So some of them like can only do one, which totally understandable. But that makes it where it's like, oh, like you have no experience. And I feel like sometimes people get intimidated to ask online, like, oh, like all these questions. Like
Right.
I definitely been there where it's like I go to my first event and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm lucky that I have friends who play TCGs and like I said, my work friend who like the first time I ever went to like a DLC, I was so nervous. But he has, years and years of experience going to like big Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. So like he was able to guide me through like, here's what you can expect and all the stuff. And I'm like, cool. Like, I'm lucky I have that resource, but a lot of people don't. Like, Lorcana is their first TCG, and it could be their first
Hmm.
TCG when in their household or their friend group or something. Um, and so it is intimidating. And so Sarah and I both saw that that was something missing in the community. And I was like, oh, well, like, we should have, create a guide so that, if you have any question that you could think of, it's probably answered in this guide.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Which is
it's a
great.
great guide. Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked to see like how many people used it. It was crazy to like meet people who realized I worked on the guide and like came up to me to like personally thank me. I was like, that's awesome. Like I'm so
Nice.
glad it's
Yeah.
helpful. Sometimes you see the numbers, and I think this is such a thing in content creating in general. Um, where and Lorcana community is still kind of small, where it's like the numbers aren't
Yeah.
that huge yet.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, well, like my post only got 50, 50 likes, but I'm like if you think about it in a grand scope, that is like 50 people, and like 50 people in one room is a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so for the guy to hit, a good amount of people, and then like it just didn't correlate until going to like events in person and people coming up to him like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that is a lot of people, and I'm so glad it helped them so much.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And like you said, it's really important for people to feel comfortable and feel like, they belong there and that they're not just, this outsider and having something like that is like invaluable to like you said, a lot of people's this is their first TCG. So, um yeah, that's really cool. I appreciate y'all working on that and putting that out there. You know, um Well, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Actually, apologize. Um, no, you talked a little bit about, the content that you create, and how that kind of helped really get that out there. I'm
Mhm.
curious, how long have you been putting that stuff together? I know did you
Mhm.
start it like way back before first chapter or anything, whenever you first kind
Um,
of started looking at the game, or?
yeah, I definitely started content pretty early into like getting into Lorcana. Like I want to say the first the first post I ever made was probably around like Inklands. Yeah, it was around Inklands, like right
Okay.
before Inklands was released, because I remember some of my first content was like, I'm going to this release event, because I created content because at the time, it was primarily, I didn't feel like Lorcana at the time was very geared towards newer players,
Hmm.
especially players that were playing more like socially. Because like I definitely got into like a competitive phase, and I like to still think I'm pretty good, but and that's a whole different conversation. That I can get into in a bit of just like what the competitive scene is like here. Um, but I just didn't feel like I was getting content that was geared towards me. Like at the time, the only person that was providing me content that I'm like, I can relate to this, was Rebecca.
Yep.
So I'm so happy her and I are friends now, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I used to like look up to you so much, and like I still do, but it's like we're now like at a friendly level.
Right, right.
Um, but I was just like, we need more. Like, I want more content where people are showing off like them going to like leagues and their like release events and things, or them like hosting casual like games with their friends, or like their theme
Hmm.
decks, and like them getting ready, because I've always been into like fashion and that stuff. Like I own a hair salon, and I've done like content for that. Like I'm a content creator brand ambassador,
Yeah,
so
I
like
saw the hair that matched the card or whatever. Yeah, that was
yeah.
really cool.
So I have like a long history of just like making content related to, that sort of stuff. And so I'm like, how can I like bring that into Lorcana? Like I want videos of people, getting ready to go to like their league. Like I want more of like the, like girly content. And so I started to make videos before Inklands, or like around Inklands, that was just like, oh, like watch me pack my bag. Like that was
Hmm.
one of my first videos, was like, watch me pack my tournament bag. For set champs, or watch me throw this party at my house for like my friends and I to play, like draft, because we like bought a booster box. So that was really fun, very very early on creating content, and I still am.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate, that there is content like yours and like Rebecca's out there because, I mean, there is obviously a competitive side to the game, right?
Yes.
Where you want the hardcore deck review kind of stuff. But
Right,
there is
which is
a
also
whole
exhausting.
social aspect to the game. I mean, the whole point of it is to play with someone and, to be there and, talk to them and, get to be with people that are, that love the game as much as you do. Um,
Right.
and to have a representation of that where it's like, you don't have to only be into Lorcana for the hardcore stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like you were saying, the competitive side of things. It's social, it's friendly, it's casual, it's there's all sorts
Yeah.
of ways you can approach it, and and having content like that that represents that is important too.
Yeah. Yeah, I get really excited. That now like theme park content is starting to be more of a thing with Lorcana, where people are doing like pack rushes and stuff at the theme
Yeah.
parks, or having characters sign their cards and stuff. So I'm glad that, over time the space has been growing so much. And I definitely do respect still and enjoyed the content that like the very competitor players play. Like I watch
Oh yeah.
Goons videos like every week.
Yep.
Or, like Forbidden Mountain, like because like when I do want to, like because I will go to leagues and like I still play somewhat competitively. I don't play competitively as much, the main reason being time wise.
Hmm.
Um, but when I do want to play, like I was like, I appreciate that they have content there that's easy, to like digest. Because sometimes too, the competitive stuff, especially as like a new TCG player, it's like I don't understand this.
Right, right.
Especially if they get
Yeah,
too technical, they're using terms that are from other games. Like I can definitely get to a point where I'm like, I think you're from Magic because you're using a
yeah,
lot of
yep.
Magic terms.
It's funny, you can always tell. And some
You always
people they
know.
really try to work at not using the terminology, but it's just ingrained for some people.
It
So, and
is.
it's
It
it's
is.
all relatively the same kind of actions, and stuff in mechanics, I guess. Better way to put it in the games, um but yeah, it's a hard habit to break.
I know. My partner had such a fun time trying to like teach me how to play Lorcana, but also not
Mhm.
accidentally use like Yu-Gi-Oh terminology.
Right,
Like, he's like,
right.
okay, this character, goes to the graveyard. And I'm like, what's a graveyard? And he's like, oh,
No,
wait,
no,
it's a
sorry,
graveyard.
discard.
It's a
Yeah.
discard. Because I didn't even know Yu-Gi-Oh terms at the time either. So I'm just like,
Okay.
I didn't know Lorcana had a graveyard. That's really
Yeah,
hardcore.
that seems a little weird for a Disney game, but okay, whatever.
Great. No, it's really funny too, the terminology. I know we'll bring it up later, but like for Vegas DLC being so particular with terminology, like I was working side events and like we can't say like when we're explaining the rules for like how because side events they're all or like the part that I was working on was primarily on demand.
Hmm.
And so when explaining like because people would be like, oh, like how long does it take until we can start playing. And it's like, oh, well, you need 4 players. And they were like, you have to say launch. You cannot say fire. And I
Right,
was like, oh,
right.
you're very particular here.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Or like, I understand why, but it is kind of like funny to think that like not even just in playing the game, but just like promoting the game and like the events and stuff, it's like they are
Mhm.
very particular about what words you can and cannot use.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there's a whole brand around it and an atmosphere that they want to make sure sticks with the game and that's one of the nice things about especially Ravensburger trying to reinforce that kind of stuff is um they want the game to develop this open and friendly community and everything, and really have geared everything about the game towards that, right down to the terminology even. Especially given the Disney aspect of it, they have to be, I'm sure they have to be really careful from that side too. They probably have all sorts of rules that they have to follow from the higher up Disney folks.
Oh,
So,
for sure. For sure. I'm sure they're always just like, you can't do this, you can't do that,
mhm.
and trying to
Yep.
protect their brand, which like it makes sense though. I mean, Disney is successful for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. So you've done a lot in your local community, but you're also a part of an online kind of community, the Love to Lore group, right?
Yeah, yeah. I joined into that very, very early. I wasn't one
Hmm.
of the people who helped create it, but I was definitely one of the like earliest people to join. Like I was part of it before it even launched like publicly. So that was really
Hmm.
cool to see. And it kind of worked out to be invited into that because at the time I was starting to plan my princess party. So I was like, oh, this is perfect that like there's other people who have the same idea of trying to create a space and community that focuses on marginalized genders.
Hmm.
Um, so that was great. And then I ended up kind of joining more of the like organizer role after the first DLC. I think mainly because I'm someone who gets involved a lot more in the um, in-person events. So like I
Hmm.
try to go to like as many DLCs as I can. It's kind of easy to then be almost like a better face for like in-person stuff as well. Um,
Hmm.
not that like I'm like the only face of in-person things, but it was just like,
Right.
oh, like to have someone who can go to as many in-person events as possible like does help a lot.
Hmm.
With trying to like you know talk about the community and like any like new person that I was like playing against at DLC that like seemed interested of like, oh, I wish like there were more people that I could like be friends with in the community. I'm like, well, I have somewhere you can join.
Like, well,
um,
actually, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then because I started being more involved in that like event side, and Left to Lore, it's really nice. And this is what I said from the very beginning is um Love to Lore I really enjoy as a community aspect. Like I being part of Love to Lore and then going to my first DLC, which was DLC Fort Worth, it was wonderful to have because like I was basically going to DLC Fort Worth by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like meeting up with Sarah. That was like one of the
Right.
first times I ever like, met Sarah in person. Which is like now we're inseparable. Can't because we both live in the PNW. But that was one of the first
Right.
times we
Yeah.
met. And um but it was great like because of Love to Lore I was able to like have friends because I would just put in like the Discord like, hey, I'm at DLC Fort Worth, who wants to meet up like in between rounds, like we'll meet at the Cinderella poster. And it was great because then I wasn't alone during the event, which was wonderful.
Hmm.
And so ever since then I definitely taken on the role where for DLCs, especially the ones I go to, whether I'm like participating or working them, I definitely take charge. And like because of the DLC guide, where every time there's a DLC, we create like a separate like thread where everyone who within the server is going can be a part of, and we plan our meetings. Or if it's someone's first time going to one and they have questions, like I can easily answer them. So
Hmm.
it's just a really great community, and generally even outside of that, it's been wonderful to see like people can post like, hey, I'm in this area and like set champs are happening and who's going, because like the community has grown so far or so big that we can do that. And there's definitely people
Yeah.
like within the
Yeah.
area that you wouldn't know were in your area.
Yeah, no, it's
So
really cool to have those connections and, and to have a place where you can feel comfortable, and talking to people and not have to worry about, it's just some random person or, you know.
really, or there's always too just I think having a space where like recently this was really great where as like marginalized genders, which is like primarily tends to be primarily females, it's really hard to talk about like online, or like LGSs still aren't very split yet. They're getting there,
Hmm.
they're starting to get there, but they're not quite there yet for some. And it's great to have a space where just the other day we were having a conversation in there where I'm like, wow, like we wouldn't be able to have this conversation online really. Where it was talking about like, oh, it's hard to be a mom and also like play the game,
Right. Yep.
or just like the struggles sometimes with playing a game as a female. And so I was just like, oh, like it's great to have where it's like we could all like share like our similar experiences. Like
Yep.
something we even talked about too, um, which is something I feel like should be kind of focused on within the community or LGSs, is like bathrooms. um,
Yep.
like
Yep.
it sounds silly, but
Oh
but it was
no.
something
Yeah.
like I had a conversation with my partner when I was first going to all these LGSs where I was like, this LGS is nice. Like the people there are really cool. I mean, honestly, their like bathroom situation is not great. um, I was like, it's gross. Like they don't
Yeah.
take care of it the best, or it's definitely not like geared. Like there's no hook to like hang your purse or anything. I was like, I don't want
Right.
to put it on the gross floor.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Don't want to
those
leave
sort
it
of
out on
things.
a chair and, yep. Yep.
Right. Right. Or it's just like, oh, it's like just it was not great. And so it was
Yeah.
great like recently to have those conversations in the chat where it's like, oh, we can all share like our frustrations
Yeah.
and like how we can
Yep.
like talk to LGS to like make them more friendly, or like,
Hmm.
like I said to you, like the whole mom conversation again, where, it's like, oh, they have these bathrooms, but like, and like there's more, female players and moms because like Lorcana has that like very diverse fan base and they bring their
Hmm.
kids. And it's like, well, this is a struggle if the bathroom doesn't have like a place to like, like those changing stations,
Right. Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
sort of thing. um so it's really good to have like those spaces to like talk about those struggles and like kind of work together to eventually like They're like, oh, I didn't realize that was a struggle. Or like I didn't
Hmm.
realize I could just ask for those things to be accommodated for.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's great. It's a really great
Yeah.
community.
Well, and I have to say, you're not the first person to mention the whole bathroom situation of the people that I've talked to. So,
Oh, great.
it is it is a common problem, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah, the
But
only
yeah,
positive is that DLC's the women's
yeah,
bathroom usually doesn't have a line. It's the only
yeah,
positive right
yeah.
now.
That's true. That's true. Well, and speaking of DLCs, oh, actually, no, before we get to that, you helped to co-host and coordinate a Love to Lore online championship tournament, right?
Yeah, yeah, I definitely helped out with that because I just have all this event experience now.
Right.
Um, and so I helped pretty recently, and we're trying to do them monthly. I think this month we're taking the month off because it's set champion season and also like
Right.
DLC, and we're
Yeah.
all busy and tired. But yeah, we definitely try once a month to have a big tournament, which is basically like our own version of like a set championships, and like we'll have
Hmm.
prizes. Like we had, I think the first one was Caroline provided like a friendship bracelet. This last one, someone generously donated a golden Mickey pin. So
Oh,
that was
nice.
gifted to whoever won first place. And yeah, it's really fun because it's like I think too some of our members, like I've said before, it's like they get intimidated to go to their LGSs for,
Hmm.
one reason or another, which is totally like no judgment there. But like having a space where they're like, oh, these are like all my friends and it's online. Or even too, like I don't know if other people have like brought this up, but like playing webcam games as a female can be very intimidating as well, because you never
Yeah.
know what's gonna pop up on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
And so we actually have like within L2L like our own playtesting servers where if you want to play with just people within the server, you can, which is really awesome. And
Nice.
so these tournaments are great because you basically know everyone who's playing.
Hmm.
So you don't also have that like intimidation factor of like, oh my gosh, like am I gonna be paired into like some random person that's gonna be weird? No.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's really fun because it definitely gives an opportunity to some of our members who, whether they choose not to go their LGSs because they're uncomfortable, or like honestly too, like you said, some people their LGSs are just really far away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that is just not, or like doesn't work with their work schedule. That
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, oh, being at home and being able to compete is like their one chance to do it and like have that like
Yeah.
competitive feel to it.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And
and
it's
there's
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying it's like they've been great. They've been very diverse too. It's
Hmm.
interesting to see like within our local server meta, just how like usually like our top four, like when we get into top four, they're all different decks,
Yeah.
which has been
Yeah.
really awesome to see. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see, the different, especially now that, the online client that shall not be named has been gone for so long. It's really interesting to see how many different metas are developing out there, right? You have your LGS meta, you have the DLC meta, you have, the Love to Lore one like you're talking about,
I know, I love to learn meta.
yeah, it's really cool to see, and I think it's really a testament to, some of the diversity that the game brings, right? It's not like, oh, there's only one way to really play this game. It's like if you're not playing these two inks, then what are you even doing? It's nice
Right.
that it kind of allows it to grow and really allow people to experiment with stuff, and also having things like theme decks and everything where it's like it's not necessarily about making a winning deck, it's about making a deck that's fun to play with, and it's
Yeah,
cool
I
that you could do all
used
that stuff in the same game.
Yeah, it's always crazy. Like I said, I'm friends with a lot of like the people that work on the game,
Hmm.
and talking to them sometimes, like they're always shocked with just how diverse it is.
Hmm.
They'll be like, "Oh, like we thought, this and this was like going to be our predictions for DLC, and we were shocked to see that, this other deck like completely out of nowhere just came in."
Yep.
Like I'm sure none of them expected Ruby Steel to be in day two of DLC Vegas.
Hmm.
Um, So it is interesting to see, even from them, that it's just like, oh, like it's always a surprise to see like what does and doesn't do well, or like, what the meta looks like. And it is like you said too, it always like baffles me just seeing it on the local level, how different it is, and even just like the like social aspects of it. Like I don't
Hmm.
know if it happened within your local meta, but I brought this up where this was set for meta. Like if you were playing the Bucky discard deck,
Hmm.
like you would think it's like, oh, that's a really like good deck. Like people have been winning DLCs with it. So like if you're going to try to win set championships, you would think like a lot of people would bring them. And
Right.
like no, but in my local meta, it was like if you bring that, like you're kind of a bad person. Not that anyone was like you're a bad person, but it
Right.
was
Right.
it was interesting to see because I was like expecting to be like, oh, like I'm gonna go to the set champs and like that's what I'm gonna see majority of. And like no, hardly
Yeah.
anyone brought it because they're like, yeah, like, if they played it, they would be like, I feel bad because I'm
Yeah.
playing this
Yeah.
deck. Like I'm
It's
sorry
like
in
I'm winning,
advance.
but it doesn't feel great. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm sorry in advance. And I was just like, that's so interesting that, like even just like the social, like especially if you have like a local meta that is very like locally where like a lot of people that are playing are friends, it is really interesting to see like how
Yeah.
that just affects into things. So like
Yep.
discard decks just don't seem to be popular because I think our local scene is just trying to be as positive as possible. And I was
Right.
like, oh, if you're
Right.
playing Discord, like no one wants to be your friend, I guess. Or you don't want to seem like, oh, I want to give someone a fair chance.
It's
But as an
that
Amber
that
Steel player,
person. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, as an Amber Steel player, I'm just like, if you really want to be my friend, stop playing Ruby Sapphire.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Uh, well, and so you went to the Vegas DLC, right?
Oh,
Did you work or were you a competitor? I kind
so
of,
that was my first DLC that I worked.
okay. I thought so. Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I definitely really like um kind of customer service.
Hmm.
Like one of my dream jobs growing up was to like be a cast member at Disneyland one day. Um,
Nice.
and then like running a salon, like that's all customer service. And like just what I do in the community is a lot of like providing experiences and like setting these up. So I felt like it was really fitting to finally like be like, you know what, I'm gonna work DLC. And like I said earlier, the cost wise of it, I was like, this is my way to like try to go to all of them, but like have it be where it's like an even profit. Or like
Right.
I'm now
Yeah.
equal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All the traveling and stuff, it starts to add up. So I was like, okay, this is my way to make it where it's like I can justifiably go to them.
Hmm.
Um, but no, it was a lot of fun. It was great to, help people, especially like if I could tell there was like their first time coming to one and making them feel comfortable, like asking me all the questions. Like, even though, like I said, I was primarily put in running side events and like more of the, because I was an organized play specialist. So I could do anywhere from running the side events, I could help launch them, get people signed up. I also helped, like, I did a lot of line management, which definitely made me like
Mm-hmm.
feel like I was a cast member to be like, okay, how many are in your party? Okay, go to this line. Cool.
Right.
And so it was really cool to be able to answer just like as many questions as possible for people and just like have them like feel comfortable. Like, okay, this is someone I can like ask them all the questions and I don't have to worry if it's like a dumb question because like they'll answer it and be nice.
Well, and I mean, there's definitely something to be said for that, especially for people that are there first time and, may not have read the guide or, may not, have friends that have done DLC kind of things before.
Yeah.
To have a friendly face and somebody that's actually, happy to help and not like, oh, well, just go over there and ask them,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, and I feel like too every DLC, even going to them at this point, it's like every DLC is different, and so I understand
Yeah.
too. Like even the seasoned people that go to all of them, being like, "Where's this? Like, where is it this time?" It's just like being able to answer those questions is always great.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. At first I was like, "Oh, am I gonna miss like participating?" And like sometimes like I am like, "Oh, I could be playing." In a competitive event or a sealed event, but I
Right.
I definitely love the community aspect a lot more. And it was really great to be able to, in between breaks or like on my lunch break, like being able to interact with people in
Hmm.
between them. So that, or like even too, I was shocked how many people were coming to me. Like they would see me at my like side events table and they would come up to me to say hi. And then like, of course, ask whatever, like get whatever ticket they needed for the event.
Right.
But it was great that I was like, oh, you guys like want to come to me and say hi. That's fun.
Well,
Um,
you're definitely clearly a customer service kind of person, so I think it sounds like it was a pretty good fit all around for for both
yeah,
sides.
I hope I get invited for I know it's gonna be competitive, but I hope I get invited to work nationals and worlds.
Yeah,
That'd be amazing.
that would be pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So let's see. We talked to him about that and that. I have to have my notes, otherwise I will, just
Oh yeah, we're like,
ramble
what are we
off
talking
way
about?
off topic. So um no, so I'm curious, you being new to the game,
Mhm.
if there was somebody just getting into Lorcana, or just getting into the community, or really trying to figure out how to get involved, what kind of recommendations do you have for people that want to get like involved in the game, or really get
Yeah.
into it?
So this is an easy question because this happens all the time. Because like working in the salon, I am always interacting with new people and clients always get interested of like, oh, what have you been up to? And I talk to them about
Hmm.
work. And then after a while, they're like, you keep talking about this game and like it's Disney, it sounds fun. Like, what can I do to get into it? So I'm like, I already have this answer, like answer it almost once a week at least at this point. And so I usually am just like, okay. Now I'm like, go get, Gateway. Like if you're
Hmm.
brand new to TCGs at all, I was like, go get Gateway because that's gonna help you. You learn like the majority of the mechanics and it's pretty fun. Especially like if they have kids and they're like, oh, this could be something for like my kids and I to play. And I was like, get Gateway. If you already have played and you kind of want a way to get a bunch of cards and like not have to stress too much about building a deck right away, get either Ursula, the Illumineer's Quest.
Mm.
I feel like
Deep
that
Shovel, yeah.
was a really great product that they made.
Hmm.
I know other people talked about it on your show where they're like, yeah, Illumineer's Quest is wonderful. And it
Yep.
really is. I feel like that's a great way to get into the game, especially if you're by yourself, because you can play that by yourself. Like you play it
Hmm.
against Ursula. And so that was a great, like, I feel like it's a great way to be like, oh, if you're getting to the game and you don't really have, like, you don't want to go to an LGS yet and you don't really know anyone else to play with, I was like, that could be a great way because you have, like, the deck that honestly has really great cards in them. Um, and just, like, get into, like, understanding the mechanics of how it goes.
Yep.
And then,
Yep.
you have the second deck where if you want to play with a friend, like, it's there. Like I said, they have really great cards in there. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely used the captain Piglet from those decks to play in my deck.
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, otherwise it's like, oh, get into a starter deck, and play with those and or sometimes too even I'm just like go to this LGS. They have open play and they usually have someone there that is, super willing to teach a brand new person. Like
Yep.
especially in this area because there's so many. I was like, just check out this one. They usually have like Full Street, like to shout them out again. They're super awesome where they have like pre-built decks and they're not necessarily starter decks, like they're decks that they built themselves that are usually like themed to like a princess one or the dwarves deck or a
Hmm.
Mickey and Friends deck, so that if someone comes who's like, hey, I'm really interested in learning how to play, they can just get out those decks and like teach them and like are like and they have like a designated person to do it and I'm like that's so awesome.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Mhm,
Um, So, on kind of the other side of things, as a
mhm,
content creator, do you
mhm.
have any recommendations for anybody wanting to kind of get started on that side? Like any advice to provide to them?
So content creating, I feel like first off, it's important to figure out what you want to create.
Mhm.
I feel like that's a huge one, like trying to kind of find your niche pretty early. Um, just to kind of like be able to have like if you're trying to specifically grow an audience, it's really important to have a niche because then people are like, you're gonna be that person. Like I feel like at this point I'm just like the event person. You want to know about
Hmm.
parties within Lorcana? I got you. Um, and like any questions regarding those, like I can help you. So having those not niche. Like with you, Chris, it's like you talk, you yap with people. If I want to listen to someone yap for like an hour, I know it's just gonna Chris. um, so having like a niche very early, I think is great.
Hmm.
Um, and just trying to like create content, in the very beginning, like don't stress too much about like, oh, I need to make all this content and like post every single day and all this stuff. Like, no, it doesn't matter. Just start doing it and get into that habit. And then I think like especially with Lorcana, trying to like get really involved in the community, like joining, Twitter and Instagram and like all the
Hmm.
discords you can and being involved. Um, because I feel like Lorcana is very like if you're part of the community, like people want to support you.
Hmm.
Um, and so like you'll see that, people that are growing more in the community are people who are, part of the community, but also in a way where it's like they're giving back. Um, it's like, oh, like I create content that's like helping people and those DLC guides. And, it's not like I'm like always promoting these guides, but it's like, oh, as we get into DLC season and people have these questions, it's like, here you go, like genuine, like here's me trying to help you, sort of a deal. And
Hmm.
so I can see it's like even like in the competitive, like if someone wanted to make like competitive heavy content, I can see that like the people that are growing are people, let's say like Lorcana goons, where they're like, hey, like here's, people are posting like right now because it's a champ season, like what are decks that people are playing? They're like, hey, these are like this is my deck, and like if you want to hear more about it, like after some banter, here's my video where I talk about a bunch of other
Right.
decks.
Yeah.
um, so it's like very very genuine relationship building. I think is like the best way to really grow as a content creator and like grow it in the space, which I think is just important in general, is to have that genuine community building.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to see, how big of a role that, being passionate about it and being genuine
Yes,
and honest with, with your content. I mean, it does, like you're saying, it goes a long way.
for sure.
You
And
can
like it might
tell.
sound like
Oh,
it
go ahead.
might sound
Sorry.
harsh where and it's not me trying to be harsh, but it's like I have, 10 plus years of like making content, and like I can tell when people are making content because they're like, oh, I just want to be like the next big person in the community, and like I want everyone to play my spicy deck list. And I was like,
Right.
you're going at it the wrong way. Like you need to like you don't want to be a content creator because you want to be like the next famous person. It's just like you should be a content creator, like genuinely you're going to gain support if you're genuinely trying to help people and
Yeah.
like create these deck lists because you want to see other people succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can definitely tell, like I've had conversations before with people where they're like, hey, like why isn't my content growing, as fast as like so and so's? And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, like I can tell that you're just throwing stuff at the wall and
Right.
trying to get
Yeah.
do best. And it's like, no, like you need to have it come like from within where you're trying to like do something good.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. Totally agree.
Mhm.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I really appreciate you taking the time. I've had a lot of fun. This has been a great
Yeah.
conversation. So I do want to end with the same three questions that I ask everybody. So first up, favorite ink and card right now,
Favorite ink? I don't necessarily have a favorite. Mm,
or
I
ink
mean, I just played
combo, I
Amber
guess.
Steel. Yeah, Amber Steel is like my favorite
Yeah.
combo. I've been playing for
Yeah.
multiple sets now. That's kind of been where it's like, Kim, Amber Steel, that's her deck. Favorite card? I would say like Captain Piglet. He's my favorite.
That's a
He's
good
just so
one.
cute.
Yeah.
I love the 100 Acre Woods. And he's such a good card, so he's just a staple in my deck.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm excited for all the future pirate 100 Acre Wood characters. Like definitely
Yeah.
excited for
Yeah.
those.
A whole bunch of them coming. Yep.
Yeah, I'm always asking for enchanted 100 Acre Wood characters. I was like,
Hey, you
where's my
never
enchanted
know.
tree? We don't have
Enchanted
one yet. Yep,
Tigger could happen,
right,
you know?
right. We have an enchanted piglet, swordsman
Yeah.
piglet, who's adorable. But I was like, can we have a really good poo? And can it be
Hmm.
enchanted? Like, I was so disappointed that Honey Wizard. was not as great as I thought it
I
would be.
know. I know. It's such a pretty card too.
I know, such great art. Like I have the playmat and like I'm super excited for the deck box and sleeves and I'm still
Hmm.
trying to get the lore counter, but I was just like, why couldn't that card just be just a little bit better? It's
Yep.
not a bad card. It has pretty decent stats on like lore, but I was like, just give it like a cool ability or make it cheaper. Like
Hmm.
would have been awesome. Would have been awesome. He would have been in every deck.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. All right. Next question. Favorite Disney movie and why?
Well, you saw me with the mug I've been using. So Night Before
Hmm.
Christmas is my favorite Disney movie. But if we're going more into like classic Disney movies, it would be Cinderella.
Okay.
I can go with the Cinderella answer because it's in the game right now. But someday, Night Before Christmas. Favorite movie because I think Cinderella is she's like honestly a role model. She's always been my favorite princess, and like as I've gotten older, I realized like I really like her because she gives the idea that even though everything can be really bad in your life, you know, she was having it rough. She had to like, you know, basically be a maid for her step family.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if you stay positive and like try your best to be a good person, then like it will all come around because like throughout the whole movie, she just, you know, was still optimistic. Like she never went to the ball because she wanted to find love. Like she went to the ball because like she wanted to have a great time and like
Hmm.
escape the house and like have a fun night for herself. Um, you know, and it was because like, you know, then the fairy godmother showed up because like she was a good person and she like pushed through all the bad and never took it like super personal. So I feel like that just like resonates really heavily and I always use that as like, oh, when things are bad, I was just like, it's okay. Like it'll work out eventually.
No, that's
Mhm.
cool. I never really thought about it from that perspective. So now,
Yeah.
next time I watch it, that's all I'm going to think about. But yeah.
Yeah, no, she was amazing. And I'm glad that she gets a lot of love in Lorcana because, you know, she's an Amber Steel, so I have like all the enchanted, like cool versions of her card. And
Hmm.
like she got the special DLC treatment. So I'm just like, I'm glad she's getting love too.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You definitely have to
All
go see
right.
my favorite success.
Well, and last question, where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me at enchanted underscore Kim underscore on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord.
Okay, perfect.
I'm
It's
just on
nice when it's
everywhere.
consistent like
I
that.
know. Yeah, it's just I got very lucky that that was like an easy handle that no one had yet, and I can just use it on everything.
Yep, yep. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
quite a few people that
sisters.
I talk to, that have to do like something different for Instagram or, just different for Twitter, just because of the character limits or, so
Right, or like someone else just happened to have the name or something.
right, right. Yep, yep. All right, well, cool. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate it. And I'll see you around the community.
All right, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and rate or like us on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can email us at lorcanachats@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter or X at LorcanaChats, the podcast at podcast.lorcanachats.com, or just lorcanachats.com. We love feedback on the show, and let us know if there's anyone you'd like to hear from in the Lorcana community. See you next time.